Now on to your painting kit, painting basics. Some of these are completely optional even here. The ones you absolutely need: brushes, water, a palette, selection of paints, and adequate light. I've got my desk lamp here. Now, optionally, I've got two sprays there. One of those, the TT Combat one, is a white base primer. I tend to work in white base. A lot of people prefer black. It's going to be down to your style and personal taste. There's no right or wrong, whatever you get a result with. I'm going to be working in white on this video. You can just paint in watered down paint as a base coat on your model. I prefer a spray. It gets you started quite quickly. And next to it, the other spray can, is some anti-shine varnish. One, because I like the finish, and secondly, because this is a model which I intend to use in games. It's going to get handled quite a bit. I don't want the paint rubbing off so quickly. A little bit more about brushes and brush sizes. So this is my selection of brushes. Now, these ones are identified by the artist scale sizing, which starts at 0 for about as small as you'd ever need on a paper or canvas drawing. And then it just increases as the numbers go up, so the size of the brush goes up. In terms of miniature painting, we are not interested in anything really size 4 and above. We won't find much use for it. It'll be too big. Even in this selection here, I have a size 3 and a size 2, which I very rarely use outside of terrain and vehicles. They're just too big for what we need. So we do have a set of brushes for miniature painting which start getting smaller than the artist scale size 0. So in my set, I've got 3, 2, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 5, 0. Now, as for use, I'm going to talk about the artist scale. Now, you'll see sizes smaller than 0 expressed as 2, 0, 3, 0, 5, 0, increasing. That number increases as it gets smaller. You will see different notation. So you might see 2 zeros printed on the brush rather than this 2 over 0 mark, or 3 zeros printed on a brush. It's exactly the same though. As for use, 0 is my general purpose brush. I find that's large enough for most of what we do on a miniature. And then everything else comes down in terms of detail work. You're going to find that many of the brands don't use the artist scale, but the sizing and purpose remains fairly consistent. So this Army Painter Regiment brush, which is for general purpose miniature painting, getting the bulk of the work down, is a fairly equivalent size to the 0 that I'd use for basic work. Similarly, the Army Painter Insane Detail brush comes up very close to the 5-0 that I'd use for the smallest detail I'd work on. So the descriptions are very consistent. Doesn't matter whether you're buying in artist scale or by description. The purpose, you're going to be using the 0s for general and then everything else for smaller and smaller detail. One of the reasons we paint from a palette is to keep the brush in good condition for as long as possible. Now, if we look at the brush itself, you've got 3 parts. So you've got the handle or the shaft, you've got the ferrule, which attaches the 2 major pieces together, and then you've got the brush itself, the bristles if you prefer. These bristles need to come
to a good point, especially if we're going to do detail work on the model. If it starts separating or feathering, it's very difficult to keep control of your painting. One of the easiest mistakes to make is to overload this brush, so we start getting paint accumulating here where the bristle meets the ferrule. And if that starts to happen, if you end up with a big paint build up here, that's definitely going to feather this out. That's going to ruin your brush over time.
So I know a lot of you have already ran out and bought the Army Painter basic paint set, which is a really good set. Has a lot of the colours that you'll need for general painting and work. These aren't the original bottles. I've used a couple and replaced them along the way. For instance, the white's now a Vallejo one, but it's the same spread of colours. So you're working from the left, you've got your primaries, your tone colours, your black and white, two fairly useful ready mixes, a green and brown, and then two more function paints, which is the toner and the metal. So a very good selection, but you're probably already finding that it's not enough. These are good basic paints and you'll use them a lot, but when you want to do a major project, you're going to find that perhaps if you're working in blue, that you need more than one type of blue or several different parts. What I would say to that is it's worth trying to plan out your project in advance. So use these as your basic paints, but then you'll need to actually invest in getting your actual project paints down. So as an example, if you were going to paint a human team with all matching green uniforms, you might want to supplement the green which you have as your base paint with a dark and light tone. That way you won't have to keep mixing up and down. And also get your flesh tones sorted out, so have a major flesh tone and a skin wash to go over that. So don't just buy one or two colours for your project. Think about your dark tones or any washes you might want, and the highlight colours, so you've got everything you need right from the start. I'm going to be working in three main colours, which is basically just a strong red, a soft tone, and a very light elf coloured skin. And I'll just be using mixes of these three, but that's my principal three colours for this project.